The first thing I heard when I walked through that door was the sound of my wife's laugh. Not the polite laugh she gives strangers, not the fake, "I'm enjoying this" laugh she saves for work dinners. No, this was her real, full-belly laugh. The laugh I hadn't heard in months. And she wasn't laughing with me. She was laughing with him. I didn't even mean to crash that party. Well, okay, maybe I did. But I didn't expect to walk in holding the arm of his wife. That was never the plan when I woke up that morning. I was supposed to stay home, cry into a cold pizza, and scroll Reddit like the sad little noodle I am. But Claire, yeah, that's his wife, had other ideas. She said, "If we're both drowning in this mess, let's set the ship on fire and watch them panic." I told her it was crazy. She told me to shut up and wear something that didn't look like I'd slept in it for 3 days. So there I was, standing in the doorway, wearing my one decent shirt, looking like a man who had just discovered his wife's idea of team building included someone else's husband. Claire squeezed my arm and smiled like we were the stars of a rom-com. Me? I wanted to puke. The whole room went silent when they saw us. Every single head turned. You could practically hear the wine glasses stop clinking. My wife's face. Oh man, I'll never forget it. She looked like someone had hit pause on her brain. Her hand was still holding Jason's sleeve when our eyes met. And that's when I realized. I didn't even have to say a word. She knew I knew. But here's where it gets weird. Claire didn't just want to shock them. She wanted to talk. To all of them. Right there. In front of everyone. "Ready?" she whispered, with the kind of grin that said, "Let's burn this down." And that's when the night went from awkward to absolutely insane. The silence in that room was unbearable. I could hear my own heartbeat, feel every pair of eyes burning into my skin. My wife, Diana, looked like she had just seen a ghost, and Jason, the guy who had been smiling so confidently a second ago, suddenly looked like someone had yanked the floor out from under him. Meanwhile, Claire, his wife, stood next to me with the calmness of someone who knew exactly what she was about to do. She didn't hesitate. She didn't stutter. She stepped forward like she owned the room. "Hi, everyone," Claire said, her voice sharp but sweet, like she was about to give a toast. "I hope you don't mind a little interruption, but I think there's something you should all know. Some of you might remember my husband, Jason." She turned to look at him, and I swear, if looks could kill, the man would have dropped dead right there. And of course Diana, my husband's favorite colleague. She spat out those last words with a grin that wasn't a grin at all. The room gasped. Literally gasped. I thought that only happened in movies. But no, these people gasped like they were watching a live soap opera. Diana's face went pale, and Jason muttered something like, "Claire, not here." But Claire wasn't done. She wasn't anywhere close to done. "You see," she continued, "our dear Jason and Diana have been giving us quite the performance behind our backs. While we were busy building lives with them, they were busy building, well, something else. Should we all give them a round of applause for their commitment to teamwork?" She clapped slowly, and the sound was so sharp in the silence that it made me flinch. I didn't know where to look. My face was burning, my palms were sweating, and yet, a tiny part of me felt relieved. I didn't have to be the one to say it. Claire was doing all the heavy lifting, and she was doing it with style. People started whispering, turning to each other like they couldn't believe this was happening. One woman near the drinks table looked like she wanted to crawl under the floor. Diana finally stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Arnold, this isn't what it looks like. We can talk about this later." "Talk about it later?" Claire interrupted, her tone mocking. "Oh, honey, you've had plenty of time to talk. With him." She shot a glance at Jason, who was now looking for an escape route, scanning the room like there might be a trapdoor somewhere. I don't know what came over me, but I took a step forward and said, "Actually, I'd like to hear it. All of it. Right here. Why not?" My voice cracked. I hated how weak I sounded, but I meant it. I wanted the truth. The tension in the room was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, Claire leaned over and whispered something to me that made my stomach twist. "Let's tell them what we found out. All of it." And trust me, it wasn't just about the affair anymore. When Claire said, "Let's tell them what we found out," I froze. My brain started spinning like an overloaded computer, and I could feel every ounce of blood draining from my face. I had no idea what she meant, but judging by the razor-sharp look in her eyes, this was going to be worse than anything I had imagined. She stepped forward and looked directly at Jason and Diana, who were now standing shoulder to shoulder. their fake composure crumbling with every passing second. You two thought you were so clever, Claire began, her voice steady and cutting. Sneaking around, thinking we'd never find out. But Jason, darling, you're not nearly as smart as you think you are. Did you forget that you share an account with me? Did you forget that I can see all your little hotel bookings, your credit card charges, your cheap lies? Jason's face turned beet red, and he tried to interrupt, but Claire raised her hand and silenced him like a teacher scolding a child. Oh no, you don't get to talk right now? Because I also found something else. Something that made me sick to my stomach. Do you want to tell them? Or should I? The room was dead silent. I could feel every pair of eyes flicking between us, waiting for the next word. My wife was visibly trembling, her hands clasped so tightly that her knuckles had gone white. I finally broke the silence, my voice shaky. Claire, what did you find? She turned to me, and for a moment, I thought she might soften. But then her jaw tightened. Arnold, it's not just the affair. These two have been using you and me, financially. Jason took money out of our joint account to pay for their little vacations. And Diana? She let him use your savings account. I found receipts, hotel charges, dinners, even jewelry. Jewelry I never got. Did you, Arnold? It felt like someone had punched me in the gut. My knees almost gave out. What are you talking about? My savings. I stopped mid-sentence because I suddenly remembered something that made me feel like an idiot. 3 months ago, Diana told me she was moving some of our emergency savings to a different account because she wanted to get better interest rates. I didn't question it. I never questioned her. Now I realized I should have. Do you want me to show everyone the receipts? Claire asked, pulling out her phone like a sword. Because I have them. And you 2-inch. She glared at Jason and Diana. You're not going to wiggle your way out of this one. Everyone here is going to know exactly what you've been doing. The whispers started again. People were staring, some recording with their phones, of course, and the tension was so thick that I felt like I couldn't breathe. Diana finally snapped. Claire, stop. This isn't the place for this. You're humiliating everyone. Everyone. Claire laughed. No, sweetheart, I'm humiliating you. That's when Jason stepped forward, his hands up as if he was surrendering. Enough, Claire. You don't need to do this here. Let's just go home and talk about this like adults. Claire tilted her head and smiled, but it was the coldest smile I've ever seen. Oh, now you want to talk? Too late. You two dragged us through hell, and I'm not letting you slither away with your secrets. Then she turned to me and whispered, Arnold, it's your turn. Say it. Tell them what you told me. My throat went dry. She wanted me to admit how I found out, how I had seen the messages, how I had been humiliated for weeks, sitting at home while my wife was off playing house with someone else's husband. And for the first time in years, I felt something I didn't expect, anger. Pure, raw anger. I opened my mouth, and the words just spilled out. I don't even remember thinking about the words before they came out of my mouth. It was like something inside me snapped, like every ounce of humiliation and heartbreak I'd been swallowing for weeks finally exploded. You want the truth? I said, my voice cracking, louder than I intended. Everyone stopped whispering and looked at me. My hands were shaking so badly that I had to clench them into fists just to stop from looking pathetic. The truth is that I've been living with a stranger. A liar. For months, I've been eating dinner across from someone who smiles at me like nothing's wrong, while she's sneaking off to some hotel room with him. I jabbed my finger at Jason like I wanted to stab him with it. You don't even have the guts to look at me right now, do you? You know what you did. And you. I turned to Diana, my voice raw and hoarse. I hope you understand that this, all of this, is the moment I stop being your fool. The room was so quiet you could hear someone's phone vibrating on the counter. Diana looked like she was about to cry, but I didn't care anymore. I'd spent too many nights questioning my own worth, too many mornings staring at myself in the mirror wondering what I'd done wrong. I wasn't going to be silent now, not with everyone here to witness what she'd done to us. But Claire wasn't done, and if anything, she was feeding off the energy. Tell them about the messages, she said, her voice sharp, her eyes glinting like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. Tell them how she talks about you behind your back. I looked at Diana, and I could see the panic in her eyes. I could see her silently begging me not to say it. For a moment, I hesitated. I didn't want to do this in front of everyone. Part of me still loved her, or maybe I just loved the version of her I thought I knew. But then I remembered that message, the one where she called me pathetic. That single word had carved into me deeper than any blade. So I said it. She calls me weak, I said, my voice trembling. She calls me boring. She said she's been suffocating with me for years. And guess what, Diana? You want to suffocate? Fine. Choke on your lies. Diana's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Jason was staring at the floor like a scolded child. Claire, on the other hand, was standing there with her arms crossed, looking like she had just won a battle. Then, something happened that I didn't expect. One of Diana's friends, someone I barely knew, stood up and said, "Is this true?" The tone in her voice was more disgusted than surprised. And that's when it hit me. The entire room was now against them. It wasn't just Claire and me anymore. It was everyone. Jason tried to speak, muttering something about misunderstandings, but Claire laughed, an actual laugh that sliced through the tension. Misunderstandings? Oh, that's rich. Should I show them the photos, Jason? Or the videos? Yeah, because I have those too. I wasn't going to go there, but if you're going to lie. My jaw dropped. Photos? Videos? I looked at Claire in shock, and she just smirked. Oh, you didn't know about that part, she whispered to me. Don't worry, Arnold. You'll see them soon enough. At that moment, I wasn't sure if I wanted to collapse or scream. The room was spinning, and I could feel the heat rising up my neck. Diana's face turned pale as she looked at Claire, then at me. Arnold, please, she whispered, like saying my name might undo everything. But it was too late. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was war. The room felt like it was boiling over, as though all the tension and anger had filled every corner of the house, and there was no air left to breathe. I could see Jason's jaw tightening with every second, like he was ready to explode, but Claire wasn't giving him any room to breathe. She stepped forward, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor with a precision that felt deliberate, like she was commanding the entire crowd's attention. You know, she said in a voice that was unnervingly calm, I wasn't going to do this. I was going to let you two leave here tonight with whatever dignity you had left. But you still think you can lie, don't you? You think this little performance you've been putting on can save you? Jason muttered something under his breath, something that sounded like, enough, but Claire ignored him. Instead, she reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and tapped the screen. She turned it around, showing the people closest to us. I couldn't see what was on it at first, but I could hear the reaction. Gasps, sharp intakes of breath, a woman saying, "Oh my God," as she covered her mouth with her hand. When I finally got a look, my stomach dropped. There they were, Diana and Jason, standing way too close, their hands all over each other in some hotel lobby, kissing like they were in some movie scene. The timestamp was from 3 weeks ago. Claire swiped through a series of photos, each one worse than the last. Dinners, hotel rooms, even a shot of them holding hands in public like they had no shame in the world. My vision blurred for a second as anger shot through me like a wave of electricity. Diana took a step forward, her voice cracking as she tried to speak. Arnold, please. It's not what it looks like. Don't you dare, I said, my voice low but cutting. Don't you dare say that right now. Look at me and tell me how many times. How long? Tell me the truth for once. My voice wavered, but I didn't care. I wanted answers. Before Diana could speak, Claire raised her hand and said, Wait, we're not done. Because these pictures? They're just the surface. She looked directly at Jason, her eyes narrowing like a predator cornering its prey. Do you want to tell everyone about the money? Or should I? Jason's face went pale. Claire. Oh, don't act like I don't know. She cut him off. I've been digging through every charge, every transaction, and it's all there. The hotel bookings? Paid with Arnold's card. The designer bracelet? Paid with my savings. The trips? Oh, you both were smart, weren't you? Using two families' money to fund your little fantasy. The whispers around the room grew louder, and I felt like my body was on fire. I turned to Diana. You used our money? I asked, my voice trembling with both rage and disbelief. She didn't answer. She just stared at the floor like a child caught with her hand in the cookie jar. Claire wasn't finished. And just so you know, Jason, she continued, her voice rising, I've already spoken to a lawyer. Every single one of these receipts, every photo, every message. Oh yeah, I've got them all backed up. So, you better start figuring out how you're going to explain this when it all becomes very public. Jason's temper finally snapped. This is ridiculous, he shouted, but his voice cracked halfway through, which only made him look weaker. You're ruining everything for no reason. No reason. Claire laughed, but there was nothing warm about it. The reason is standing right next to you, Jason. The reason is every lie you told me while I trusted you. The reason is every time Arnold sat at home wondering why his wife was suddenly too busy for him. Don't you dare talk to me about reasons. The room erupted into chaos. People were whispering, some openly recording now, while others were quietly backing away as if the tension was too much for them to handle. I felt dizzy, like the ground beneath me was tilting. And just when I thought I couldn't handle any more, Claire leaned toward me and whispered, "There's one more thing I found. Something that changes everything." I didn't know what she meant, but the look in her eyes told me it was bad, worse than anything we'd heard so far. I could feel Claire's words sink into me like a knife. Something that changes everything. What more could there possibly be? My marriage was already a smoldering ruin, my dignity shredded in front of an entire room of people I barely knew. And now she was telling me there was still more, something worse. My chest tightened, and I had to swallow hard just to find my voice. What are you talking about?" I asked, but my voice came out rough, barely audible. Claire didn't answer me right away. She was still staring at Jason like she was daring him to make a move. And for the first time all night, I saw something new in Jason's expression, fear. Not the kind of fear you have when you're caught cheating, but the kind of fear that says, "She knows something I never wanted anyone to know." It was enough to make me step back, my stomach flipping as if I'd just stepped off a cliff. "Tell them, Jason," Claire said, her voice low but powerful, slicing through the room's chatter like a blade. "Go ahead. Tell Arnold what else you've been hiding. Or should I?" Jason shook his head, his voice cracking. "Claire, stop. This isn't the time." "Oh, I think it's exactly the time," she snapped, her tone sharper now. "Because while you two were sneaking around, lying to us, spending our money, you were also making plans, weren't you? Plans that didn't just hurt me or Arnold, but would have destroyed both of our lives if I hadn't found out." I felt a surge of anger rise in me again. "What plans?" I asked, turning toward Jason and Diana, but they both stayed silent. That silence, it made me want to scream. Claire pulled out her phone again, her fingers shaking but determined, and opened an email. "Look at this," she said, handing me the screen. I scrolled through what looked like a long thread of messages between Jason and my wife. My hands trembled as I read line after line of their disgusting little fantasies about a future together. But it wasn't just the usual affair garbage. They were actually talking about moving away. Together. They were discussing selling our house, our home that I had worked my entire life to afford, and splitting the money behind my back. Diana had even written, "He's so naive, he'll never see it coming." My vision blurred with rage. "You were going to leave me? Take everything we built, and just, what, disappear with him?" My voice cracked, my throat burning. "After all I've done for you? After everything I've given up?" Diana started crying, the kind of crying that's half performance, half desperation. "Arnold, I didn't mean it like that. It was just talk." I was angry. I was confused. Confused? I nearly shouted. "You weren't confused when you were emptying our savings. You weren't confused when you wrote this garbage about me. Pathetic. Weak. Those were your words, Diana. Was that also just talk?" The room was dead silent again. People were frozen, watching this car crash unfold, but Claire wasn't about to let up. She stepped closer, her voice cutting through the quiet. "And that's not even the worst of it, Arnold. Jason and Diana weren't just planning to run away. They've been lying to you about money, yes, but also about something else, something personal, something you deserve to know." She turned to Diana, her face cold. "Should I tell him, or would you like to finally show some honesty for once in your life?" Diana's eyes widened. She looked terrified now, and that scared me even more because I had no idea what this was about. "Claire," she said in a whisper, "please. Don't. Don't." Claire laughed bitterly. "Oh no, sweetheart. You don't get to beg now. Arnold, I think you should know exactly how deep this betrayal goes. Do you remember last spring, when Diana told you she was visiting her mother for that week?" I nodded slowly, confused. "Yeah," she said her mom was sick. Claire tilted her head. She wasn't with her mother. She was with Jason. And Arnold, she paused, like she was weighing whether to drop the final blow. She wasn't just with him. They stayed in a private villa. 4 or 5 nights. Using your money. And that's when they started talking about how they could get rid of you entirely. My whole body went cold. Get rid of me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Claire nodded. Not in the way you're thinking. They wanted to push you into selling the house, into thinking everything was your fault, so they could walk away with everything and leave you with nothing. Diana's face crumpled. It wasn't like that, Arnold. I didn't mean it. I was lost. I didn't know what I was doing. But I didn't believe her anymore. I couldn't. The woman standing in front of me wasn't my wife. She was someone I didn't even recognize, someone who had been quietly destroying me piece by piece. Before I could say anything, Claire added, there's more. You haven't even seen the worst part of those messages, Arnold. But I think you deserve to. She held the phone out to me, and I felt my hand shaking as I reached for it. I didn't know if I could stomach what I was about to read, but I had to know. When Claire placed her phone in my hand, I didn't want to look. My thumb hovered over the screen like it might burn me, and part of me wanted to throw it against the wall just to avoid seeing what kind of poison was waiting for me. But curiosity and anger are a dangerous mix, and I couldn't stop myself. I scrolled up through the messages, my stomach knotting with every word I read. It wasn't just the affair anymore. This was betrayal at a level I couldn't have imagined even in my darkest dreams. The first few messages were just sickeningly romantic garbage, the kind of stuff that made me feel like I'd swallowed broken glass. Diana talking about how Jason made her feel alive. Jason saying how he was tired of living a lie and couldn't wait until they could be together without the dead weight holding them back. My name wasn't mentioned, but I knew who that dead weight was. Me. They were talking about me like I was some boring piece of furniture they couldn't wait to toss out on the curb. Then I saw a message that made my vision blur. It was from Diana. She had written, Arnold doesn't even notice when I'm gone. He's so pathetic. I swear I could vanish for a week and he'd just sit there eating leftovers and playing sad songs. It's almost too easy. My heart sank. I felt like the air was being sucked out of my lungs. Too easy. That's what she thought of me. I felt the blood rushing to my face, my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I kept scrolling, even though every part of me wanted to stop. That's when I found the worst part. Jason had replied, Don't worry, babe. We'll get everything we want soon. Just keep pushing him. Keep making him feel like he's the problem. He'll fold. They always do. Claire must have seen my expression because she put a hand on my shoulder, steadying me. There's more, she said quietly, her voice like steel. Scroll further. You need to see it. I didn't want to, but I did. I reached the section that Claire must have meant, and what I saw made my stomach twist so hard I nearly felt sick. They were talking about money, about selling my car behind my back. Jason had actually written, if he's dumb enough to sign off on the papers, we'll get the cash fast. Then we can go to Portugal for a while, get away from everything. Portugal. They were planning their dream life, while using me like some kind of walking ATM. I lowered the phone slowly, my hands numb. Diana was staring at me, her eyes wide and red, like she could see every ounce of love I had for her draining out of me. Arnold, please, just let me explain, she said, her voice shaking. Explain? I laughed, but it came out broken and hollow. Explain what? How you plan to strip me of everything I've worked for? How you called me pathetic while you spent my money on a vacation with him? What exactly do you want to explain to me, Diana? Jason stepped forward then, his jaw set like he was finally ready to play the hero. All right, that's enough. This is between us and doesn't need to be aired out in front of everyone. But I wasn't about to let him control anything anymore. For the first time all night, I felt something new, this strange mix of rage and clarity. I stepped closer to him, the phone still in my hand, my voice low but steady. You think you can just walk into my life, take what's mine, and walk away like nothing happened? No, Jason, you're not walking away from this. Not tonight. Claire gave me a sharp look, almost like she knew I was reaching some breaking point. She stepped between us and said, Arnold, don't waste your breath on him. He's already nothing. Look at him, he's a coward. But we don't have to end this quietly. Not tonight. Then she turned to the crowd. Do you all see now? She said, raising her voice so everyone could hear. This is what happens when you trust people who don't deserve it. When you love someone who's already planning their escape while smiling at you over dinner. People started murmuring again. Some were looking at Diana with disgust, others glaring at Jason like he'd just admitted to stealing from them personally. It was chaos, but for once, I wasn't the quiet, passive guy standing in the background. I felt something snap inside me, a need to take control, to stop being the victim in this nightmare. I turned to Diana, and with a calmness that surprised even me, I said, I want you to tell them. Right now. Tell them what you told Jason about me. Tell them why you thought I was such a joke. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Arnold, please, not here. Let's just go home and talk. No. I cut her off, my voice firm. There is no home anymore. There's just you, him, and the mess you made. So go ahead, tell them, because if you don't, I will. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. And that silence, that pathetic, heavy silence, was the final nail in the coffin. I felt the whole room turning, every pair of eyes waiting for the next move. And that's when Claire whispered something to me, her voice almost gleeful but steady. Arnold, I think it's time we show them what we planned. Let's finish this. I had no idea what she meant, but judging by the look in her eyes, she was about to flip the entire night on its head. Claire's words, let's finish this, echoed in my mind like a challenge I wasn't sure I was ready to face. But when I looked around that room, at all the judgmental eyes staring at me like I was some kind of tragic figure, something inside me shifted. For weeks, I'd been living as a victim, crying alone, questioning my worth, drowning in betrayal. But not anymore. This was the moment I decided I wouldn't let Diana or Jason define the rest of my life. Claire stepped forward, her heels striking the floor like a drumbeat, and raised her voice. Arnold, you know what we talked about. Let's stop letting them have power over us. Right now, tonight, this ends on our terms. I didn't know where she found that strength, but it was contagious. I felt it flooding into me like a rush of adrenaline. I turned to the room, my voice loud and clear. You know what? I'm done. I'm done being the guy who gets stepped on, who sits quietly while people tear his life apart. Diana, I looked her straight in the eyes. You made your choice. Jason, you too. And you can have each other. Because I don't want either of you in my life anymore. Not now, not ever. Diana's tears stopped. She looked stunned, like she expected me to crumble, to beg. Jason tried to mutter something, but Claire cut him off. Save it. Nobody here cares what you have to say. Then Claire turned to me with this spark in her eyes. Come on, Arnold. Let's go. We don't owe them a single second more. And that's what we did. We walked out of that party together, leaving the stunned silence behind us. The cool night air hit me like a shock, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could actually breathe. Claire slipped her arm through mine, and for a moment, we just stood there in the driveway, letting it all sink in. Are you okay? She asked quietly. I laughed, not a bitter laugh, but the first real laugh I'd had in weeks. No, but I will be. I think I needed that. I needed all of this to burn down so I could start over. She smiled at me, and for the first time since I'd met her, it wasn't a smile of anger or pain, but something lighter. Good, because I'm not letting them win. And neither should you. We ended up talking for hours in a diner down the road, drinking bad coffee and eating greasy pancakes while we planned our next steps. Not revenge, but how to take our lives back. She told me about all the things she'd given up for Jason, and I told her about all the times I'd ignored the warning signs with Diana. We weren't victims anymore. We were just two people who'd been hurt, finding a way to laugh again in the middle of our wreckage. In the weeks that followed, I filed for divorce. I closed the joint accounts Diana had drained and started rebuilding what was mine. It wasn't easy, but every small victory felt like a step out of the shadows. Claire and I stayed in touch, not as some rebound story, but as two friends who had been through hell and survived. One evening, about a month later, I found myself standing outside my house, the one Diana had almost stolen from me. The sun was setting, casting this warm, golden light over everything, and I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken. I was free. And maybe, just maybe, that was the happiest ending I could have asked for.